Hey, Mike Matthews here from Muscle for Life and Legion Athletics, and in this video podcast, we're going to talk carb and fat blockers, which are a subgenre of fat burner supplements that purport to block calorie uptake and block the uptake of carbs and fats in particular, meaning that theoretically you can eat a bunch of food, take some pills, and just it goes in one end and right out the other. Now, if your first assumption when you heard about carb and fat blocker supplements is that they must be complete bullshit, I understand that was my first assumption as well. But once you look into it, you learn that there actually is some evidence that shows that these supplements do something. However, that doesn't mean that you should take them, and ultimately, it doesn't mean that they are going to help you get the body you want faster, because they are simply not nearly as effective as the pill and powder pushers would have you believe. So how do these supplements work? Well, they're actually mimicking something that you can find in nature. There are plenty of carb and fat blockers in nature. You can find them in plants, which have a lot of vital nutrients that they want to hold on to. And so as a part of a defense system, so to speak, they have developed chemicals that make it more difficult for us and other animals to eat them, digest them, break them down, and get the nutrients that we need. Now, these carb and fat blocking molecules can work in one of two different ways. They can directly inhibit the absorption by binding to the carbs and fats themselves, which changes them chemically enough, changes them on a molecular level so that they cannot be absorbed through our intestines, and by indirect inhibition, which is the interference with an enzyme that is needed to break the macronutrient down. So by preventing the enzyme from doing its job, you block your body's ability to digest and absorb the food. Now, as far as dietary supplements go, most all of them work by indirect inhibition. So they interfere with enzymes needed to digest and absorb carbs and fats, because direct inhibition can also interfere with our body's ability to absorb vitamins and minerals, which would be very bad, of course. So when you start looking at these supplements, you notice that most of them take a kind of kitchen sink approach, and they have small amounts of many different types of ingredients. However, there are three ingredients in particular that are very common. And they are white kidney bean extract, Salacia, reticulata, and psyllium husk. So let's talk about them. White kidney bean extract. This is simply a plant. It has been on the market for some time, sold under the brand name Phase 2. It is probably the first valid carbohydrate inhibitor to hit the market for weight loss purposes. And it works by impairing an enzyme that is needed to digest starches. And studies do show that it has resulted in weight loss when paired with high and very high carb diets. However, we should note that those studies were funded by a supplement company that produced white kidney bean extract supplements, which doesn't necessarily mean that the research is invalid, but definitely should be noted, it is a red flag. We do not have independent evidence that white kidney bean extract can indeed result in or speed up weight loss. It's also worth noting that many of the subjects in these studies often reported gastrointestinal side effects like flatulence, diarrhea, cramping, and bloating. So white kidney bean extract may indeed be able to help you reduce fat gain from starchy foods. However, the evidence that we have is tainted by a conflict of interest. And even if it does work for you, you may end up shitting yourself. Okay, moving along to Salacia reticulata, which is a fancy sounding herbal compound that interferes with a number of enzymes that help us digest carbohydrates. For example, sugar digesting enzymes like maltase, isomaltase, and sucrase are inhibited by a couple of molecules found in this plant. And research shows that they work quite well, actually, about as well as a pharmaceutical reference drug. And that's why a number of studies have shown that Salacia reticulata can reduce glucose absorption in rats, as well as glucose absorption and insulin secretion in people with type 2 diabetes and otherwise healthy adults. Okay, next is psyllium husk, which is a supplement that looks a bit like instant oatmeal, and it is a balance of soluble and insoluble fiber. And soluble fiber dissolves in water and it tends to soften your stool, whereas insoluble fiber binds to fatty acids and helps your stool move along through your intestines at a normal pace. Now, psyllium is pretty neat because it's healthy. It is the go-to fiber supplement for most people who are not getting enough fiber in their diets, and research does show that it can slightly reduce carbohydrate absorption, but not fat absorption. And research also shows that supplementing with psyllium increases the levels of butyrate in your poop, which is good for your gut. Butyrate is a form of butyric acid that is kind of like a superfood for the good bacteria in your gut. It is good for your microbiome, which can positively impact your overall health and even your performance, both mental and physical, in a number of different ways. So, how well do these supplements work, and particularly for fat loss, which is the number one reason why people buy and take these supplements? And while technically these supplements can work, they can help with fat loss, as evidenced by orlistat, for example, which is a pharmaceutical fat blocker. Most people agree, most people who are informed agree that these types of supplements and drugs are just a horrible option for several reasons. So the first reason is these supplements cannot cause fat loss. They are not increasing your metabolism. They are not increasing fat burning or affecting fat burning in any way. They are simply preventing fat gain. They are reducing the amount of fat that your body stores from the food that you eat. So in other words, they're really no more effective than simply putting the fork down and walking away, or never going into the pantry in the first place. Another reason why I just don't really recommend these supplements is I think they reinforce bad eating habits and prevent people from learning positive eating habits that are going to serve them well for the rest of their lives. For example, many people struggle with controlling their food intake. They struggle with not overeating, and especially not overeating certain types of foods, usually junk foods. And so when you have a carb or fat blocker enter the picture, many people hope that they can continue with their poor dietary habits and just make up for them by taking pills. And the third reason why I do not like these supplements and these drugs is the side effects pretty much go hand in hand with the potency. It is basically impossible to get a powerfully effective carb or fat blocker and avoid major side effects. And so let's talk about those side effects. Let's talk about them in the context of safety, because while everything that I've discussed so far is safe, so long as it's not abused, there are side effects. So for example, when you have a fat blocker, of course, what that means is that you have fatty acids that are not going to be absorbed, and they're going to move through you in that intact state. And as they are oily substances, they are going to lubricate the food that is going to be moving through your intestines and eventually end up as poop. And what this means then is if you are not also eating enough soluble and insoluble fiber, the food that you eat is going to move through you a lot faster than usual. And this not only can get in the way of nutrient absorption, so you're not giving your body enough time to absorb the nutrients in the food because it's just moving through you quickly, it also can result in some rather embarrassing accidents. In other words, you can shit yourself. And if you want to read about this, then just Google orlistat accidents and enjoy. Now, the most common side effects associated with carb blockers are the gastrointestinal distresses that I mentioned earlier, the gassiness, the bloating, the cramping, and so on. And the reason for this is when carbohydrates pass from the small intestine to the large intestine, without being fully digested and broken down, bacteria in the large intestine eat them up, with the byproduct being gas. So at the end of the day, carb and fat blockers are probably always going to be around because they are so easy to market. They are the ultimate magic bullet. Eat all the food you want, especially all the carby, fatty food that you want. Take these pills and you will lose weight. That, of course, is not true, but there are many people out there that don't know that or aren't fully convinced of that, and they figure, what the hell, for 30 or 40 bucks, I might as well give it a go. And then when they see it doesn't work, they just chalk it up to a lesson learned and move on a little bit more informed. Now, I could see these supplements having maybe limited use during high calorie periods. So let's say over the holidays, if you're going to be eating a few really big dinners, for example, and you want to try to mitigate the damage, I could see including these types of supplements. However, I still would say they're probably not going to do very much of anything anyway. So you might as well just enjoy yourself and know that you really can't gain that much fat from one meal or even from one day. Even if you eat a lot of calories in a day, there's only so much fat that your body can create in a 24-hour period. It's probably somewhere around 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. 2 pounds would be impressive, but I'd say for most people, it really takes a lot of eating to gain even 0.5 pound of fat in a day. And for people who are trying to lose fat, I would say skip these supplements altogether because, again, they're really not going to make that much of a difference. The side effects are going to be very annoying, and they're going to reinforce bad habits. And that's it for this video. See, I told you I'd keep this one shorter. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please do give it a like and drop a comment down below letting me know what you thought, and also share your experiences with these types of supplements, whether it's the supplements that the specific ingredients that I mentioned in the video or other ones. Let me know in the comments below. And also, please do hit the big red subscribe button. It really does help me out, and hit the bell next to it, and YouTube will notify you when my next video goes live. That's it for now. See you in the next video.